Do-hyun stood perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes forward. The ceremonial armor felt heavy on his shoulders, but he had learned not to move. Not even a little. The Caltherians noticed everything. The throne room stretched out before him like a cathedral made of crystal and starlight. Hundreds of alien nobles filled the chamber, their violet skin shimmering under the soft glow of floating lights. They were tall, these Caltherians. Most of them stood at least 7 feet, with long limbs and faces that looked almost human, except for the extra set of eyes that sat just above their main ones. Do-hyun was human. He was also a guard. Not a real guard, though. Everyone knew that. Humans were decorations in this palace, pretty things to look at. Proof that the mighty Caltherian Empire had conquered Earth. That had been 15 years ago. Do-hyun remembered the stories his parents told him. The war lasted 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks, and Earth surrendered. The Caltherians had weapons that could crack continents, ships that moved faster than anything humans had ever built. There was no fighting them. There was only surviving. Now humans served. Some worked in mines, others in factories. The lucky ones, like Do-hyun, got ceremonial positions. He wore armor, stood in corners, and tried not to think too much. Empress Valithara sat on her throne at the far end of the room. She looked ancient and beautiful at the same time. Her robes flowed like liquid silver, and her 4 eyes held the weight of centuries. Do-hyun had heard she was over 400 years old. To the Caltherians, that was normal. They lived long lives, much longer than humans. The Empress was speaking to her council about trade routes and mining operations. Do-hyun did not understand most of it. He was not supposed to. He was furniture. A human-shaped decoration meant to stand and look presentable. But today, something felt different. Do-hyun had good instincts. His training officer back on Earth had told him that. "You notice things, Kang," she had said. "Use that." So he watched even when he was supposed to stare at nothing. The Empress kept touching her throne. Her long fingers would grip the armrest, then release. Grip and release. It was a small thing. Probably nobody else noticed. But Do-hyun saw the pattern. Every few minutes she would tense up, like she was in pain. Minister Kelvoth stood beside the throne, reading from a holographic display. He was one of the Empress's most trusted advisors, and he made no secret of his feelings about humans. Last week he had walked right past Do-hyun and muttered, "Primitive decorations." Do-hyun had smiled and said nothing. That was the job. Smile and say nothing. The council session dragged on for hours. Do-hyun's legs ached, but he did not shift his weight. Lieutenant Hana Song stood at the opposite side of the room, also motionless. She was his commanding officer, and she had very clear rules. "We are guests here," Hana had told him during his first week. "Unwanted guests. We smile, we serve, and we survive. That is the mission." Nothing else matters. Hana was right. Earth had negotiated a treaty. In exchange for peace, humans would send workers and guards to serve the Empire. It was humiliating, but it kept Earth from being destroyed. Billions of lives for the price of human pride. Finally, the Empress dismissed her council. The nobles bowed and left in groups, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. Do-hyun remained at his post. Guards stayed until they were dismissed, and the Empress had not given that order yet. She sat alone on her throne, staring at the holographic star maps that floated in the air. Her 4 eyes moved across them, studying something. Then she touched her armrest again. This time her grip was so tight that her knuckles turned pale. Do-hyun felt a strange urge to move forward, to ask if she needed help. But that would be insane. A human guard did not speak to the Empress, ever. He would be executed for such disrespect, so he stood and watched. After 10 minutes, the Empress waved her hand. "Guards, you are dismissed," she said in Universal Standard, the common language used across the Empire. Her voice sounded tired. Do-hyun bowed and turned to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he glanced back once. The Empress was alone now, completely alone. She had sent away even her personal attendants. That was unusual. The Empress always kept someone nearby. Do-hyun left the throne room and walked through the long corridors of the palace. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the floors felt warm under his boots. Everything in this place was beautiful and cold at the same time. Hana was waiting for him in the guard station, a small room where humans were allowed to rest between shifts. She looked up from her datapad. "Anything interesting?" she asked. Do-hyun shrugged. "The usual. Trade agreements. Mining quotas, Hana nodded. Good, boring is good. Boring means we go home alive. Do-hyun wanted to mention the Empress's strange behavior, but he stopped himself. Hana would tell him not to think about it. Not our concern, she would say. And she would be right. But as Do-hyun lay in his bunk that night staring at the ceiling, he could not stop thinking about the way the Empress had gripped her throne. The way she had dismissed everyone, even her most trusted people. Something was wrong. He did not know what. He did not know why it mattered. But his instincts, those same instincts that had kept him alive through training and deployment, were screaming at him. Something was very, very wrong. Do-hyun closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow he would stand in the throne room again. He would wear his armor and pretend to be furniture. He would smile and say nothing. That was the mission. But deep in his gut he knew that something was about to change. The palace felt different. The air felt heavier. Like the moment before a storm breaks. Do-hyun had survived the fall of Earth by trusting his instincts. And right now every instinct he had was telling him to pay attention. The Empress was in trouble. And somehow, impossibly, that was going to matter. The night shift was always quiet. Do-hyun preferred it that way. During the day the palace buzzed with activity. Nobles walked the halls. Servants rushed everywhere, and the constant hum of politics filled the air. But at night, the palace became still, almost peaceful. Do-hyun stood alone in the throne room. Most of the lights had dimmed, leaving only a soft glow that made the crystal walls look like ice. The Empress had requested a single guard for the evening. Usually that meant she wanted privacy to work. She sat at a table near her throne, reviewing holographic star charts. Her 4 eyes moved across the glowing images, and occasionally she would make notes on a data pad. She had not spoken to Do-hyun since he arrived. To her, he was invisible. Just another piece of furniture, that was fine. Do-hyun was good at being invisible. He checked his internal clock. 3 more hours until his shift ended. Then Hana would take over and he could get some sleep. Simple. Easy. The Empress stood up from her table. She moved toward the star charts, reaching out to manipulate the display. Then she stopped. Her hand froze in midair. Do-hyun noticed immediately. Something was wrong with her posture. She was leaning slightly to one side, like she was losing her balance. Then, without any warning, she fell. Her 7-foot frame crashed to the crystalline floor with a sound that echoed through the entire chamber. The star charts flickered and disappeared. The Empress lay still, her silver robe spreading around her like water. For a moment, Do-hyun could not move. His training screamed at him to stay at his post. Call for help. Do not approach. Do not touch. Humans did not touch Caltharians, especially not the Empress. But she was not moving. Do-hyun's feet carried him forward before his brain could stop them. He crossed the throne room in seconds and dropped to his knees beside her. Up close he could see that her violet skin had turned gray. Her breathing was shallow and fast, Your Majesty, he said quietly. Her 4 eyes opened, unfocused and confused. She looked at him like she was trying to remember who he was. Then her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. No, she whispered in universal standard. Her voice was rough, like it hurt to speak. No Caltharian doctors. They cannot know. Do-hyun stared at her. You need help. I have to call someone. No. Her grip tightened. If they find out, if the council knows I am weak, it will be the end. Do you understand? The end of everything. She was not making sense. Or maybe she was, and that was worse. Do-hyun had heard rumors about Caltharian politics. Their empire was built on strength. A weak leader was replaced quickly, sometimes violently. Please, the Empress whispered. They will see it. The weakness. The empire will fall. Do-hyun's mind raced. If he called for the Caltharian guards, the Empress would be exposed. If he did nothing, she might die. Either way, he would probably be executed for being in the room when it happened. But there was a third option. I know a human doctor, he said quietly. She is not Caltharian. She will not report to your council. The Empress's eyes focused on him for the first time. She studied his face like she was deciding whether to trust him. Then she nodded just once. Do-hyun activated his communicator, setting it to a private channel. Dr. Cho, this is Corporal Kang. I need you in the throne room immediately. Medical emergency. Tell no one. There was a pause. Then a young woman's voice responded. Corporal, I cannot just... Now, doctor, please. Another pause. On my way. Do-hyun looked down at the Empress. She was still breathing, but her skin was getting grayer. He had no idea what to do. Human first aid training did not cover alien empresses. Dr. Minji Cho arrived 4 minutes later. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes and steady hands. She took one look at the Empress and went pale. Are you insane? She hissed at Do-hyun. Do you know what they will do to us if... She asked for help, Do-hyun interrupted. She does not want Caltherian doctors. Minji stared at him, then at the Empress, then back at him. Then she knelt down and opened her medical scanner. If we die for this, I'm haunting you forever. Fair enough. Minji ran the scanner over the Empress's body. The device beeped and displayed information that Do-hyun could not read. Minji's expression went from worried to confused. Her vital signs are all wrong, she muttered. But I do not know what right looks like for a Caltherian. Their physiology is completely different from humans. The Empress grabbed Minji's arm. Look at my blood, she whispered. Something is wrong with my blood. Minji nodded and pulled out a small needle. She took a blood sample and fed it into her portable analyzer. The machine hummed for 30 seconds. Then it beeped. Minji went very still. She stared at the display like she could not believe what she was seeing. What is it? Do-hyun asked. Minji looked up at him, her face white. Corporal, this is not a disease. She is being poisoned. The word hung in the air like smoke. Poisoned. Someone was trying to kill the Empress. Are you certain? Do-hyun asked. The analyzer detected a foreign substance in her blood, something that does not belong there. It is breaking down her cells slowly. Minji looked at the Empress. How long have you felt sick? 6 months, the Empress whispered. Maybe longer. I thought I was just tired, old, 6 months. Someone had been poisoning her for 6 months and she had told no one. Can you treat it? Do-hyun asked. Minji bit her lip. I do not know. I would need to identify the poison first, and I do not have the right equipment here. The Empress tried to sit up but failed. Take me to your medical bay. The human quarters. No one will look for me there. Do-hyun and Minji exchanged glances. Moving the Empress was incredibly risky, but leaving her here was worse. Okay, Do-hyun said. We move fast. If anyone asks, she is inspecting the human facilities. Can you walk? I will try. Together, they helped the Empress to her feet. She was heavy and weak, leaning most of her weight on Do-hyun. They moved slowly through the empty corridors, taking servant passages that were rarely used at night. Every shadow made Do-hyun's heart race. Every sound could be a guard or a noble. If they were caught, there would be no explanation good enough, but they made it. The human quarters were located in a distant wing of the palace far from the main halls. Minji led them to the small medical bay, a room barely larger than a closet. They laid the Empress on the examination table. Minji immediately began running tests, her hands moving quickly across her equipment. Do-hyun stood by the door, watching the corridor outside. His mind was spinning. The Empress was being poisoned. Someone in the palace wanted her dead, and now he and Minji were involved. Hana was going to kill him, if the Caltherians did not kill him first. Found it, Minji said suddenly. The poison. It is called netheril extract, very rare, very deadly to Caltherians. Can you cure it? Minji did not answer right away. She kept working, her face tight with concentration. Finally, she looked up. Maybe. But I need to know who is doing this, because if they poisoned her once, they will do it again. Do-hyun looked at the Empress. She was watching him with her 4 eyes, waiting for him to decide what to do next. A human guard, a human doctor, and an alien Empress who had just trusted them with her life. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. Minji worked through the night. Her small medical bay had become a laboratory, filled with samples and scanning equipment. The Empress lay on the examination table, her gray skin slowly returning to its normal violet color. Whatever treatment Minji had given her was working, but slowly. Do-hyun stood guard at the door, watching the empty corridor. Every few minutes he checked his communicator. So far, no alarms. No one was looking for the Empress. That was good, but it would not last. How long until someone notices she is missing? Minji asked, not looking up from her work. Morning shift change, Do-hyun said. Maybe 3 hours. I need more time than that. The Empress stirred. Her 4 eyes opened, more focused now than before. You are doing well, doctor, she said quietly. I can feel the poison leaving my body. Minji glanced at her. The treatment is temporary. I am using human antibodies to fight the toxin, but it will come back unless we find the source. The source is in my private chambers, the Empress said. Somewhere. I do not know where. Do-hyun turned from the door. Why did you not tell your own doctors? Your counsel? The Empress sat up slowly with Minji's help. She looked tired, ancient. Because a weak Empress is a dead Empress. The Caltherian way is simple. If I cannot rule, I am replaced immediately. By who? My niece, most likely. Lady Thera. She has been waiting for decades. The Empress smiled, but there was no humor in it. She is ambitious, patient, and she has many supporters in the council. Minji frowned. You think she is poisoning you? I think someone is. And they are close to me, close enough to access my food, my water, my private rooms. The Empress looked at Do-hyun. That is why I trusted you. You are human. You have nothing to gain from my death. Do-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. If you die, what happens to Earth? The Empress was quiet for a moment. Then she gestured to a data pad on the table. Show him the files, Doctor. The classified ones. He deserves to know what he is risking his life for. Minji picked up the data pad and handed it to Do-hyun. Your Majesty, these files are... I know what they are. Show him. Do-hyun took the pad. The screen lit up with Caltherian symbols, then translated into Universal Standard. What he saw made his blood run cold. The files were medical reports. Thousands of them. They detailed a genetic plague that had been spreading through the Caltherian population for 30 years. The plague did not kill. It did something worse. It made Caltherians sterile, unable to have children. We are dying, the Empress said softly. Not quickly, not dramatically, but we are dying. Our birth rate has dropped 70% in 3 decades. Within 2 generations, there will be no Caltherians left. Do-hyun stared at the data. Charts showed the decline across all 47 systems of the Empire. The military was especially affected. Young Caltherian soldiers were rare now. Most of the Imperial fleet was crewed by subject species. By conquered people like humans, why are you telling me this? Do-hyun asked. Because you need to understand what is at stake. The Empress stood steadier now and walked to the window. Outside, the stars glittered against the black void. When we conquered Earth, it was not just for resources. It was not just for territory. We needed you. For what? For survival. She turned to face him. Humans are remarkable. You adapt to everything. Poison, disease, radiation, gravity extremes. You thrive in conditions that would kill us. Your immune systems are aggressive. Your genetics are flexible. You are exactly what we need. Minji's eyes widened. You want to use human DNA to cure the plague. Yes, but it is not simple. We have been studying humans for 15 years and we still do not fully understand your biology. You are chaotic, unpredictable, wonderful. The Empress smiled sadly. And you are our only hope. Do-hyun felt sick. Everything he thought he knew about the war, about Earth's surrender, was wrong. The Caltherians had not conquered Earth because they were strong. They had done it because they were desperate. Does the Council know? He asked. About the plague? Some do, others suspect, but no one speaks of it openly. To admit weakness is to invite invasion. We have enemies, Corporal Kang, many enemies. They are waiting for any sign that the Empire is failing. And if you die, then Lady Thera takes the throne. She is young, strong, but she is also a traditionalist. She believes Caltherians are superior to all other species. She will stop the human research programs. She will tighten control over Earth and the other conquered worlds. And when the enemies come, she will fight. The Empress sighed. And we will lose, because we are not as strong as we pretend to be. Do-hyun looked down at the data pad. The numbers did not lie. The Caltherian Empire was a shell. Beautiful on the outside, rotting on the inside. So what do? He asked. We find out who is poisoning me. We stop them. And we keep this empire from tearing itself apart. The Empress looked at him with all 4 eyes. Will you help me, Corporal Kang? It was insane. He was a human guard, a decoration. He had no power, no authority, no reason to care what happened to the Caltherian Empire. Except that he did care, because if the Empire fell, Earth would burn. Again, I will help, he said quietly. But I need support. I cannot do this alone. Then gather your people. Those you trust, Do-hyun thought for a moment. Then he activated his communicator. Commander Park, this is Corporal Kang. I need to speak with you immediately. It is urgent. There was a long pause. Then a gruff voice responded. This better be good, Kang. I was sleeping. It is not good, sir. It is terrible. But you need to hear it. 20 minutes later, Commander Yoongi Park arrived at the medical bay. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with gray hair and a face that had seen too many battles. He took one look at the Empress and froze. Corporal Kang, he said slowly. What have you done? Do-hyun explained everything. The collapse, the poison, the plague, the conspiracy. When he finished, Park was silent for a long time. Finally, the commander looked at the Empress. Your Majesty, if this gets out, they will execute every human in this palace. I know. And you still want our help? Yes, because you are the only ones I can trust. Park rubbed his face. Then he laughed, a short bitter sound. Hana is going to kill me. Fine, we help. But we do this smart. We need information. We need evidence. And we need to keep this quiet. Minji held up a vial of clear liquid. I have created a better treatment. It will counteract the poison completely, but it uses human antibodies and earth plant compounds. If the poisoner sees the Empress recovering with unknown medicine, they will know something is wrong. Then we find them first, Park said. Before they realize their plan failed, the Empress nodded. I will pretend to recover naturally, slowly. Meanwhile, you investigate. Find the poisoner. Find the conspiracy. Do-hyun felt the weight of the mission settle on his shoulders. He was a guard. He was trained to stand still and look presentable. He was not a spy. He was not a detective, but he was human. And humans adapted, they always had. We will find them, Do-hyun said. The Empress touched his shoulder, a gesture of respect among Caltherians. Thank you, Corporal Kang. You may have just saved more than my life. You may have saved an empire. Do-hyun did not feel like a hero. He felt terrified, but he would do the job anyway. That was what humans did best. They survived. The Empress returned to her duties the next morning, moving slowly but steadily. She told her advisors that she had felt tired the previous night and decided to rest early. No one questioned it. Why would they? She was the Empress. But Do-hyun saw the way Minister Kelvoth watched her. The way Lady Thera smiled just a little too much. Someone in the palace knew the truth. Someone was waiting for the Empress to die. Do-hyun spent the day trying to act normal. He stood at his post. He followed orders. He pretended nothing had changed. But inside, his mind was racing. He needed information. He needed evidence. And he had no idea where to start. That evening, he met with Corporal Sora Han in the human quarters. Sora was the communications specialist for the guard unit, a quiet woman who could crack encryption codes in her sleep. I need your help, Do-hyun said simply. Sora looked up from her datapad. With what? I cannot tell you everything, not yet, but I need access to the palace security systems. Can you do that? Sora studied him for a long moment. Then she set down her pad. You are investigating something. Something dangerous, yes. Does Commander Park know? Yes, Sora nodded slowly. Okay, give me 1 hour. She was faster than that. 40 minutes later, Do-hyun had access to security footage from the entire palace. He also had encrypted communication logs from the noble quarters. Sora had given him everything. I did not see this, she said quietly. And you did not get it from me. Understood. Thank you, Sora. Be careful, Do-hyun. Whatever you are doing, be careful. Do-hyun took the data back to his quarters and started searching. He focused on the Empress's private chambers. Who had access? Who visited regularly? The list was shorter than he expected. The Empress valued her privacy. Lady Thera visited twice a week. Minister Kelvoth 3 times a week. The Empress's personal physician, Dr. Kalseth, visited daily. A handful of servants came and went, but they were always supervised. Do-hyun studied the footage for hours. He watched people enter and leave. He noted patterns, times, behaviors. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. Then he noticed something strange. Dr. Kalseth always brought a medical case with him. That was normal. But on certain days, the case looked slightly different, heavier, like it contained more than just standard medical supplies. Do-hyun marked those dates and compared them to the Empress's symptoms. According to Minji's analysis, the poison was administered regularly, every 3 to 4 days. The dates matched perfectly with Dr. Kalseth's heavier case. It could be a coincidence. But Do-hyun did not believe in coincidences anymore. He went to Commander Park with his findings. Park listened carefully, then called in Sora and Minji. Together they reviewed everything. "The doctor," Park said quietly. "It makes sense. He has access. He has knowledge of Caltherian biology, and no one would question him carrying medical supplies. But why?" Minji asked. "What does he gain?" That was the question. Dohyun pulled up Dr. Kalseth's background. The doctor was old, even by Caltherian standards. Over 300 years old. He had served the imperial family for decades. He had no obvious political ambitions. "He is not doing this alone," Sora said suddenly. She pointed at the communication logs. "Look, encrypted messages between Dr. Kalseth and Lady Thera. Dozens of them over the past 6 months." Dohyun felt his stomach drop. Lady Thera, the Empress's niece, the heir to the throne. Sora cracked the encryption. The messages were careful, coded, but the meaning was clear. Lady Thera was planning something, and Dr. Kalseth was helping her. But there was more. Sora found messages between Lady Thera and several high-ranking nobles. They were discussing the future of the Empire. They were discussing change. "They want the Empress dead," Park said grimly, "and they want to blame humans for it." Minji looked up sharply. "What?" Sora pulled up another message. This one was more explicit. Lady Thera was planning to poison the Empress during the Treaty Day celebration, an annual event where all the subject species sent ambassadors to renew their loyalty to the Empire. Hundreds of humans would be present, including Earth's ambassador. "They are going to kill her in front of everyone," Dohyun said, "and then they will claim a human did it." "It is the perfect excuse," Park said quietly. "A human assassinates the Empress. The Empire retaliates. Earth burns. And Lady Thera takes the throne as the strong leader who punishes humanity for its crime. We have to stop them," Minji said. "How?" Dohyun asked. "We cannot arrest Dr. Kalseth. We have no authority, and if we tell the Empress, what can she do? If she accuses her own niece without proof, the council will think she is paranoid." Weak. They sat in silence, each of them trying to find a solution. Then Sora spoke up. "We need help. We need someone with authority. Someone the council will listen to." "Who?" Park asked. Sora pulled up a file. "Minister Kelvoth?" Dohyun blinked. "The minister hates humans. He calls us primitives, I know. But look at this." Sora showed them communication logs between Kelvoth and the Empress. Private messages. Coded messages. "He is investigating something too. He has been tracking unusual activity in the palace for months. I think he suspects the same conspiracy we found." Park leaned back. "So we approach him. We share what we know, and we hope he does not have us executed for spying." "It is a risk," Dohyun said. "Everything is a risk now." Dohyun thought about it. Then he nodded. "I will talk to him alone. If this goes wrong, the rest of you can claim ignorance." "No," Park said firmly. "We do this together. We are all in this now." The next day, Dohyun requested a private meeting with Minister Kelvoth. The request was so unusual that the minister actually agreed, probably out of curiosity. They met in a small conference room. Kelvoth sat on one side of the table, his 4 eyes cold and unwelcoming. Dohyun sat across from him with Park standing behind him. "A human guard requests my time," Kelvoth said. "This should be interesting." Dohyun took a breath. "Minister, the Empress is being poisoned. We have proof. And we know who is doing it." Kelvoth did not move. For a long moment he simply stared at Dohyun. Then he said, "Continue." Dohyun explained everything. The collapse. The investigation. The evidence against Dr. Kalseth and Lady Thera. He showed Kelvoth the communication logs, the security footage, the timelines. When he finished, Kelvoth was silent. Then he stood and walked to the window. "I knew something was wrong," the minister said quietly. "I have been watching Lady Thera for months. She has been gathering support among the traditionalists, those who believe the Empire should rule through strength, not cooperation." He turned to face Dohyun. "They want to stop the human research programs. They want to return to the old ways, and they are willing to kill the Empress to do it." "Then help us stop them," Dohyun said. Kelvoth looked at him for a long time. "You are asking me to trust humans, to work with humans. Do you have any idea how difficult that is for me?" "Yes, sir. I do." The minister smiled just slightly. "I believe you do." He sat back down. "Very well. I will help, but we must be smart about this. Treaty Day is in 2 days. If they plan to strike then, we need to catch them in the act. With evidence," Park added. Real evidence that the Council cannot ignore. Exactly. Kelvoth pulled up a holographic display. Here is what we will do. They planned through the night. It was risky, dangerous. If anything went wrong, they would all die. But if they did nothing, the Empress would die, and Earth would burn. Do-hyun thought about his home, about the billions of people who were counting on him, even though they did not know he existed. He thought about the Empress, who had trusted a human guard with her life, and he knew there was no choice. They would see this through, together. Treaty Day arrived with ceremony and grandeur. The great hall of the palace was filled with ambassadors from 47 worlds. Humans stood alongside Kelthans, Vordians, and a dozen other species. All of them were here to renew their loyalty to the Caltherian Empire. Do-hyun stood at his post near the main entrance, wearing his formal ceremonial armor. He looked calm. Inside, his heart was racing. Somewhere in this crowd, Dr. Kalseth was carrying poison. Somewhere, Lady Thera was waiting for her moment. The Empress sat on her throne, looking strong and healthy. Only Do-hyun knew how much effort that cost her. Minji had given her a treatment that morning, enough to keep her stable for a few hours. But the poison was still in her system. One more dose would kill her. Ambassador Junho Kim stood with the Earth delegation. He was a wise man in his 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had negotiated Earth's surrender treaty 15 years ago. He had saved billions of lives by accepting humiliation. Now, he stood calmly, not knowing that his world was in danger again. Minister Kelvoth stood beside the throne, playing his role perfectly. To everyone else, he looked like the loyal advisor. Only Do-hyun knew the truth. Kelvoth was watching, waiting. The ceremony began. One by one, ambassadors approached the throne to pledge their loyalty. It was formal, boring, exactly the kind of event where no one would notice a small moment of poisoning. Do-hyun scanned the crowd. Where was Dr. Kalseth? There, near the refreshment table. The doctor was preparing the ceremonial drinks that would be offered to the Empress later in the ceremony. His hands moved quickly, efficiently, too quickly. Do-hyun activated his communicator using the private channel. Target located. He is at the drink table, Sora's voice came back. Confirmed. I have visual. He just added something to the main cup. That was it. The poison. Do-hyun wanted to move immediately, to grab the doctor and stop him. But that was not the plan. They needed witnesses. They needed proof that the entire council could see. The ceremony continued. More ambassadors. More pledges. Do-hyun forced himself to stay still. To wait. Finally, the moment came. A servant brought the ceremonial cups forward on a silver tray. One cup was for the Empress. It was larger than the others, decorated with precious stones. It was also filled with poison. The servant walked toward the throne. Dr. Kalseth watched from the crowd, his face calm. Lady Thera stood nearby, her expression carefully neutral. But Do-hyun saw the anticipation in her eyes. The Empress reached for her cup. This was it, the moment. If Do-hyun did nothing, she would drink. She would die, and Lady Thera would blame humanity. Do-hyun moved. He crossed the hall in 3 long strides and grabbed the cup from the Empress's hand just as she was bringing it to her lips. The liquid sloshed but did not spill. The entire hall went silent. 1,000 eyes turned to stare at him. A human guard had just touched the Empress, had just taken something from her hand. It was unthinkable. Corporal Kang, the Empress said quietly. What are you doing? Do-hyun held up the cup. This drink is poisoned, Your Majesty. Gasps filled the hall. Lady Thera stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. How dare you? Guards, arrest this human immediately! But Kelvoth raised his hand. Wait, he looked at Do-hyun. You make a serious accusation, Corporal. Do you have proof? Do-hyun handed the cup to Minji, who had moved forward with her medical scanner. She ran the device over the liquid. It beeped loudly. Netheril extract, Minji announced, her voice clear. Deadly poison. Enough to kill a Caltherian within minutes. The hall erupted in chaos. Nobles shouted questions. Ambassadors backed away from the refreshment table. The Empress stood from her throne, her 4 eyes blazing. Who did this? She demanded. Who poisoned my cup? Lady Thera recovered quickly. Obviously the humans did it. They are trying to kill you and frame someone else. No, Kelvoth said firmly. He pulled up a holographic display visible to everyone in the hall. I have been investigating this conspiracy for months, and I have evidence. The display showed communication logs, security footage, financial transfers. Everything pointed to Lady Thera and Dr. Calseth. The doctor had been poisoning the Empress for 6 months. Lady Thera had been coordinating with noble supporters to seize power after the Empress's death, and they had planned to blame humans for the assassination. Dr. Calseth tried to run. He made it 3 steps before palace guards grabbed him. Lady Thera stood frozen, her face pale. "You have no proof," she said, but her voice wavered. "I have everything," Kelvoth said. "Messages, payments, witnesses. You wanted the throne, Lady Thera. You wanted to end the cooperation with subject species and return to the old ways of conquest. You believed the Empire was weak." The Empress stepped down from her throne. She walked slowly toward her niece, and the entire hall watched in silence. "You are right about one thing," the Empress said quietly. "The Empire is weak. But not in the way you think." She gestured to Minji. "Show them." Minji pulled up medical files on the holographic display.
The genetic plague.
The declining birth rates. The truth that the Caltherian leadership had hidden for 30 years. "We are dying," the Empress said to the assembled crowd. "Our species is failing, and we have been too proud to admit it, too afraid to ask for help." She turned to face the entire hall. "I have been poisoned for 6 months. Not by humans, by our own people. By those who would rather see the Empire burn than admit we need to change." She looked at Dohyun. "But a human guard saved my life. A human doctor cured me, and human investigators found the conspiracy that nearly destroyed us all." Ambassador Junho stepped forward. "Your Majesty, what are you saying?" The Empress took a breath. "I am saying that the treaty Earth signed 15 years ago was built on a lie. We did not conquer your world because we were strong. We did it because we were desperate. We needed your genetics, your adaptability, your strength." She looked around the hall. "And I am proposing a new treaty. Not one of conquest, but of partnership. Earth will help us fight the plague that is killing our species. In return, Earth becomes an equal member of this empire. Not a subject world. An ally." The hall exploded with arguments. Some nobles shouted their support. Others called it madness. Lady Thera screamed that the Empress was destroying everything the Empire stood for. But Ambassador Junho raised his hand. And slowly, the hall quieted. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "Earth has suffered under Caltherian rule for 15 years. Our people have been slaves. Our pride has been broken. Why should we help you now?" The Empress met his eyes. "Because if we fall, you fall with us. Because our enemies are watching. And because despite everything, we can be better together than we are apart." Junho was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. "I will need to consult with Earth's government. This is not a decision I can make alone. Of course, take all the time you need. However," Junho continued, "I can tell you that Earth has always valued cooperation over conquest. If you truly mean what you say, if you truly want partnership instead of domination, then I believe we can find a way forward." The Empress nodded. "Then let us begin." Over the next hours, the conspiracy members were arrested. Lady Thera and Dr. Calseth were taken to holding cells. Their supporters in the council were identified and removed from power. And slowly, carefully, a new treaty began to take shape. Dohyun stood with Commander Park and watched the negotiations. He felt exhausted. Everything had changed so fast. "You did it," Park said quietly. "You saved her. You saved Earth." "We saved Earth," Dohyun corrected. "All of us." The Empress approached them, moving through the crowd with renewed strength. She stopped in front of Dohyun and bowed slightly, a gesture of deep respect among Caltherians. "Corporal Kang, I owe you my life, and perhaps the life of this empire. I was just doing my duty, Your Majesty." She smiled. "No, you did much more than that. You showed us what true strength looks like. Not the strength to conquer, but the strength to survive, to adapt, to help even when you have every reason not to." She gestured to Minister Kelvoth, who approached with a formal tablet. "I am creating a new position in my personal guard, the Elite Guard. It will be composed of the best protectors from all species in the Empire, and I am appointing you as its first member." Dohyun stared at her. "Your Majesty, I am just a ceremonial guard. You were. Now you are something more." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are proof that we can change, that we can be better." Minji received a position as head of the Joint Medical Research Initiative, Sora was promoted to Chief of Palace Security. Commander Park became the official liaison between Earth's military and the Caltharian forces, and Earth's status changed. Not a conquered world, not a subject, a partner. It would take time. Trust would have to be earned, not demanded. Old wounds would have to heal. But it was a start. That evening, Do-hyun stood at his new post outside the Empress's chambers. The palace felt different now, quieter, more hopeful. The Empress emerged from her rooms and paused beside him. "What are you thinking, Corporal?" Do-hyun looked out at the stars beyond the palace windows. "I am thinking about Earth, about how we lost the war but found something else." "What did you find?" "A place. A real place. Not as conquerors, not as servants. Just as ourselves," the Empress smiled. "Your species survived when you should have perished. You thrived when you should have weakened. That is not weakness, Corporal. That is the greatest strength of